second broader category is his untruthfulness during the process, right?
Well, you've got false reports, you've got untruthfulness, you've got insubordination, and you've got, above all and beyond that, the use of his position as an officer with somebody that is in his care and custody at the time.
Okay. But there's two categories of problems here, right? There is the actual use of the force, right? And that would encompass the use of force and position as a cop and the care of the prisoner. And then there's his lack of truthfulness, according to you, which would be his responding to
Insubordination, lack of truthfulness, filing either false reports or incomplete reports like we've charged. All of these are circumstances.
Okay. And so, and if we're going to say that, and if you're going to allege that he was either untruthful or he was insubordinate, we need to establish for this hearing examiner what was the order he received that his response was inadequate, okay? And so I'm going to ask you these things in the order they occurred, all right? First, what was the order Lieutenant Esmeralda Guerra gave Ulysses Bautista?
He has a reporting duty to report the circumstances involving an injury that's been reported by an officer. Okay, that he has by duty that responsibility. When he gave Lieutenant Guerra a report, whether or not at her direction, and that report is false or incomplete, that is a violation of department policy.
If Esmeralda Guerra told Ulysses Bautista, give me an IDC about how Luis Zuniga got spat on, are you saying that his report is insufficient to respond to that?
His report is, like I said earlier, false or incomplete and lacks the entirety of detail that is necessary with regard to this incident.
The second set of statements were his written statement to Captain Mark Freeman, correct?
It's Captain John Freeman.
John Freeman, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Say again, who?
John Freeman.
Freeman, yes.
Yes, sir. Captain John Freeman. The answer, yes, sir.
All right, and we do know what John Freeman ordered Ulysses Bautista to respond to, don't we?
Yes, sir.
All right. And Captain John Freeman specifically requested a memo from Ulysses Bautista explaining Ulysses Bautista's actions, right?
Yes, sir.
And
Counsel explaining what?
explaining Ulysses Bautista's actions. Captain John Freeman asked Ulysses Bautista to give him a memo explaining his actions.
Okay.
Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and that's found in writing, correct?
Yes, sir.
And in response to that order from John Freeman, Ulysses Bautista said that I jabbed Aaron Soto in the midsection, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I jabbed Aaron Soto with a strike to the torso when I was wearing running shoes, correct?
I believe so, yes, sir.
And he then gave statements, this is Ulysses Bautista, to members of the Office of Professional Responsibility.
Yes, sir.
All right. And the two members that he gave those statements to were Frank Trevino and Joe Hernandez, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. And during his interview with Frank Trevino and Joe Hernandez, he said that he jabbed he jabbed Aaron Soto with his foot into the oblique area, correct?
I believe so, yes, sir.
And he also told them that he did not lift his foot up and did not apply much force, right?
I believe so, yes, sir.
And then he had a Loudermill hearing with you, correct?
Yes, sir.
Well, let me back it up a little more. Prior to going to that Loudermill hearing with you, he was ordered to submit a written statement about his actions with Aaron Soto, correct? Through you, through OPR.
No, that's the OPR interview.
Well, so there's an actual oral interview, right? And then there's a statement that's reduced to writing.
No, sir, the OPR interview that you are talking about, that's
Say again?
the interview that he's talking about with our internal affairs officers, that is at the point that he walks in with his statement and says, this is my statement. And there's a cursory Q&A that goes on as a result of his statement.
So he
Up
comes
to-
into the OPR
Right. With-
meeting with a written statement
With a written statement.
that he
And we-
prepared.
Yes, sir, we have, by collective bargaining agreement, we have an obligation to provide
I
him
just want to understand that.
2 days, yeah. So we give him an order, and it says, come back in 2 days and bring your statement ready on this matter. And so when he walks in, then that cursory Q&A that happens, this is what you're saying, this is what you're saying, yes, yes, yes. That's that Q&A that's going on about his statement that Mr. Willis is pointing towards.
Are you claiming that the interview he had with OPR after he tendered his written response was a cursory interview?
Yes, sir.
Isn't it true that that interview lasted 40 minutes?
I'm not sure.
And
But-
in his written response that he tendered to OPR, he also stated that he jabbed Aaron Soto with his foot in the midsection, correct?
I believe so, yes, sir.
All right. And during his interview with OPR that lasted, well, this is where I'm sorry, let me pause for a second while I ask this. This is where I want to play the audio recording, because he calls it a cursory interview, and I want to have him listen to it and ask him questions about whether or not this is a cursory interview, because I have a far different position on that.
Mr. Will, you can call it whatever you want, and those just my way of referring to it. But he's given an order to answer questions at OPR.
Yes, and I want
but,
the
you know,
hearing examiner to hear.
And that's fine, but I'm
his
just,
complete
I'm not,
answers.
you know, what I
Let
call it.
Let counsel explain his position here.
Yeah, I want the hearing examiner to hear Ulysses Bautista's complete answers, subject to examination by members of the OPR. And again, the interview or the opportunity he had to say his side to the chief during the Loudermill hearing was not recorded nor transcribed. And the statements themselves are consistent in the file that show that I jabbed Aaron Soto. He makes those statements. The chief is saying that is incomplete, untruthful, a violation of policy. And so one of the categories that the chief alleges to be insufficient or untruthful were his statements made to OPR. And so I would like to downplay the OPR interview, because that gives you all of the information that he says under the examination from, in essence, him, through his members of OPR.
And you still have a desire to cross.
I can say,
redirect the
I can
witness.
say that my redirect is going to be pretty brief.
Brief.
Yes. I'll leave it up to the hearing examiner as to whether we want to have the chief hear the entirety of the interview and then respond to Mr. Willis's questions about that, or
Do you
not.
think the use of the video will put you in a different position vis-a-vis crossing this witness rather than not?
Yes, I do.
Okay, then let's do that. Can we take 5 minutes?
Sure.
much more of a case
After this,
in terms of time, yeah?
I think that Mr. Ozuna will have some rehabilitation questions. I'll probably have one or two after that on that. I'm assuming you're closing?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't characterize them as rehabilitation, just a redirect,
Oh,
a brief
redirect.
redirect,
Yeah.
yeah. It's, my plan is that it's brief. And so and that'll be the end of my case in chief.
And then I have 3 officers who will testify to the environment of downtown. I think that's going to take at the most, at least on my direct, 5 to 10 minutes apiece. I have...
Because I remember 19 subpoenas.
Yes, and they're there just in case we need them, if we couldn't establish what I needed to establish to the chief, because all those people were mentioned in these reports.
Okay, so three officers, 10 minutes. What else do you have?
Then perhaps my client.
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
Okay.
And then, and I say perhaps.
No, I understand what you mean.
Yeah.
I understand.
And then I have one other, Jerry Stanton, who's an expert witness. My direct of him will probably take at the most an hour. And I'm not playing any video unless it's necessary for cross-examination purposes.
Well, based on that, it would seem to me we should do this tomorrow.
Well,
I'm fine with that.
let me ask this. Are you saying there's a possibility that the officer won't testify?
May not. Well, after what you told me, I don't know.
Well, I was anticipating that he would make some statement in his own defense, and so I would like the opportunity to examine him, which I plan to do on cross-examination. If he's not going to, I mean, we might have to have some colloquy about what I want to ask and whether or
Well,
not.
here's the thing. What you want to ask, according to what you just told me, he may have to assert this fifth.
Okay.
So, I mean...
But I think it'd be worth going on the record about that. Because there's been a development here that triggers a right on his part that the hearing examiner probably needs to know about.
I want to verify it first.
Okay. All right.
And if it actually, then I will tell you, you know what, take it back. He will testify.
Okay, all right.
Right.
As long as I have that assurance.
Yeah, he's going to testify.
Okay.
And if, you know...
So, put a time factor to that.
His direct will be an hour. It was an hour.
You know, it just seems to me we should come in tomorrow fresh and pick it up. I mean,
That's fine.
you might not even have a full, well, you probably will have a full morning, maybe go to 1 o'clock or 1:30.
That's fine.
Seems a better use of time that way, rather than staying here.
I'm available to start earlier if it's the hearing examiner's pleasure.
Well, 9 o'clock is fine. for
Okay,
me.
that's fine. Just trying to
Actually,
cram
it's
as
a
much
little
into the-
too early, but,
Are you staying nearby?
yeah, right down the street,
Okay,
actually,
all right.
at the Hampton,
Okay.
yeah. All right, so 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, we pick up fresh. You'll still be in the box,
Yes, sir.
You'll be watching the video. He'll cross you on just what he sees. Let's assume that's wound up. Counsel will have redirect questions, and you may have a few after that. Then we switch over to the counsel's direct case.
Great.
Is that okay?
Yes,
Excellent. Excellent. So the hearing's closed for today.
thank you. Can I leave my screen?
Good job, both of you.
You can't problem,
Thanks.
right?
I'm not aware of any meetings scheduled in here other than this for 2 days.
Okay.
Would you be sir?
Yeah, you gonna take those?
Well, you have the one that I've designated